Okay, that's the door to the kitchen there. There's also other doors too there. New England farmers, short growing season. What happens if you have your dooryard on the north side over here in the spring? Okay, good. Some of you farmers are laughing as they go. You know, you got mud. Okay, you're dead. Okay, you got to get out in the fields and all that. Your system of agricultural production takes a hit and all that. This makes a whole lot of sense over here. I would just bracket that a little bit and say that out in North Dakota and Minnesota, where they got winds, that are 100 miles an hour, and they got snow drifts over the top of the barn. They got good reasons to connect their house to the barn together, but they never did. So it's not the, it's a supportive reason. And I knew that it made sense to do that. And so I'm lining up a couple reasons that make a connected organization pretty good there. But this is, other farmers in other areas of the country have the same issues, but they never did connected farms. So minor issue. Quick one, if you drive to the countryside and then you see a house, and I've seen a couple of these already in Kingston. You ever drive in New Hampshire countryside and get to a little hill up at the top of the hill, and you get to the top and you see a Cape Cod house, but it's angled, off angled to the road? 50% or more of the time, this house is facing south and not the road. In the village, everyone faces the road. It's just the Egyptians face the road. Everyone, Druids face the road. Okay, in the town. But out in the countryside, all people, like the Druids and other people, face the major door of their house in the barn southerly. They did that in England, and they came into America. It's a minor tradition. By 1840, nobody does that old tradition, and everyone faces the road. I'd interpret that as being the road becomes absolutely dominant. You don't get your crops to market, and quickly you out of it. What we have is a system of agriculture. They're never self-sufficient, but it's now self-sufficiency is way down the chart. These people have to get their stuff to market. They face the road, and by 1840, everyone faces the road. Older agrarian traditions are being eliminated. I'm an architectural historian. I'm sort of a certified architectural historian. I mean, I love this stuff, and I'd like to think that you like to love this stuff too. And so I could take you to a lecture like mine and say, let's look at all the styles of the connected farm. And presumably you love this stuff, okay? And here's a federal style house. Now, who wouldn't like that? Okay, Greek Revival and small Italianate features over here in the connected farm. A farmer in Bridgeton, Maine wants to be an Italian prince, okay, and then makes an Italianate building, or a second empire. A lot of times in the farm diaries they say, Farmer Jones down the road is building in the French style. What they mean is a Mozart roof kind of style, double angle roof over there, the French style, okay? Anytime you see a steep gable like that, say Gothic, very steep, you've seen some of them in town over there. Connected farm in the Gothic style. In the city, it's connected farm. Stable over there. Most of these are just stable. There's the stable. And then the shingle stone. The parade of styles. No, I could give you a Queen Anne connected farm, some of you could Google and all of beautiful stuff. It is beautiful stuff. But it's the architecture of a very small percentage of farmers. And so I'm talking about farmers today, so we are then not talking too much about this stuff. Some farmers do this, but, I'm talking about most farmers most of the time. Scratch. What we have most farmers doing most of the time is an architecture of, we don't have a word for it. It's white. It's got some neoclassical details and all that, but as you go to the barn, I probably have to show another slide, it gets dissipated and all that. And by the way, the one thing that differs your guys' barns from other parts of the country is you put the same architectural style as the house onto the barn. You know what German farmers in Pennsylvania think about that? You're breaking rules. The barn isn't like the house. Something wrong up there in New England? There's good German farmers over there, but they don't do that. They fix up their barn, but they don't put the same architectural style as the house on the barn. But you guys did, and you guys drove that. So there's this unity, and so your farm is a little different, and I want to talk about that little difference. Anyway, white neoclassicism, we have a word for that. I call it New England Village aesthetic. That's what you got down on the plains. New England Village aesthetic. It's white, it's classical mostly, and all that. Most farmers chose that. I show this because sometimes farmers are, a guy like me, an architectural historian, says, well, these farmers, they didn't know. They're keeping, had they known, they would have made a Queen Anne of Farmhouse. Okay, well, we can dispense with that, no. And in my book, I have a chapter where Tobias Walker, my farmer superstar, this is Kenny Bunk. Do you recognize this house? The famous wedding cake house on the way to the bushes. When you have tea with the bushes, you pass this one over there. And so there it is on the way to do that. Well, there's a farmer in about 1850s, 60s, around there. He sees the cathedral, the Gothic cathedral in Milan and other places, and he makes this Gothic fantasy about that. Okay, there's 1.001% of farmers who do this kind of thing. And my farmer, and the point is, my farmer Tobias Walker, he passes this house maybe 300 or 400 times in his lifetime. Anyway, he comments on it and all that. He knew about these houses. Other farmers know about style, but they didn't choose that style. They chose other styles about that. And I'm just saying, watch out for the ignorance, the kind of farmer and all that. They know options that they have and all that, but they choose, and you guys have chosen a particular kind of, I call it white New England style. You can call it what you want. Because New Hampshire Humanities Council is sponsoring, I feel incumbent upon me to talk about truth and beauty. Okay, so I think these are beautiful pieces of architecture. Okay, by any standard. I'm an architect. You want a house? Want it to fit you like a glove? I can do it for you. Okay, but I look at this architecture and I say, this is architecture of the people, of the average people, of a very high quality. And it's architecture that's created by individual farmers, a great deal of that. Well, there's a lot of tradition there. Obviously, the big house back, that's a tradition that they worked in, interestingly. But a local farmer had the option of taking their two buildings that are facing, to the street this way, and then changing these two to face gable to the street that way. I'm an architect. I look, wow, look at the changes these guys are making and all that. Or you can make it more uniform between the big house and the barn, and unify this in a kind of single fuselage. That's an individual farmer making decisions. Now, I call this a very high level of folk art or folk architecture. Okay? Now, most of you folk art lovers and all that, quilts, weather vanes, duck decoys, guns, cool. This is folk art architecture of very high caliber. And more than quilts and more than duck decoys, this tells us a whole lot about the people who made them. And properly interpreted, this is the signature of very common people. This high salaries, rich farmers who do the same thing, and very poor farmers who do. But on average, this is a very high quality. Anyway, this is architecture you should love. This has been brought to you by SAVE, the Connected Farm Association, that I like to push you and all that. Anyway, your Grace Daily House needs that kind of help also. Look, this is a milk house, by the way, out here in front. Symbol of the 1930s or 20s or 30s. Milk production comes outside the house. There are places, preservation takes interesting angles on these houses. Here's a house preserved. This is Milton. You ever go up to Milton? This is the Jones Farm. I've spoken there. I've been involved in the research about that. Anyway, a long connected farm, a museum. I don't think we should preserve, every connected farm. That's because it's so common. We don't do that. But I think we can honor and appreciate them. Because they're so close to average people, and this kind of production of average people to create this kind of house. This is a beautiful house. I'm an architect. This is beauty. Okay. Notice the architectural style of the house, also on the barn. Unusual. We're going to talk about that. Anyway, this is architecture of a very high caliber. And just as a little twist here for interpretation, Henry Glassy of Folklorist has an expression about folk architecture or folk art. Folk architecture or folk art is somebody else's fine art. Remember that about this. This is also fine art of a certain kind of people. Okay, and in this case, it's average farmers. If this is your gene pool, it's pretty good stuff. Barns are cool. All houses are cool because they're part of a construction system. This is the heavy timber construction system. So this is an Oregon barn, but if you took apart a barn in your neighborhood, this is what it would look like, the skeleton portion of that. And here's the heavy timber part of that. The heavy timber part of that is a very old system, ancient English system. By about the 10th, 11th, 12th century, they're doing things like this in England, and guess what? It comes to America. It's an all-wood system. There's a 10-inch tongue that's shoved in